think all should be fine now. All right, so let's go. It's my it's my it's not a tradition. It's just my life. I'll say a word of prayer, then we'll start. So Lord, we commit this session into your hands. We ask that you lead us. We ask that you guide us. We ask that you will make every word that we would say seasoned with salt, and you would give everyone the divine understanding to comprehend. We ask that your spirit would lead us and take this as an offering to you. Everything we say will be pleasing in Jesus' name. We pray, Amen. So, let me go. Let me go full screen. So, thank you, everyone. I want to appreciate. I know we have other things to do, but we chose to be here. So I just want to help us talk about this career um, called project management, so that for those who wish to transition, it's gonna be a good part. So, but if one thing I love to do first is a color identification test. So we'll be looking at some colors, and then I would want us to put on the chat space what we think is the color. So so this color we have here, it's not a primary school stuff, but I would actually explain why I'm doing this. So what color do we think this is? Then for this one, so some persons say red, blue, green, and white. All right, so let's do a review. So yeah, this is red, correct, and then this is blue, this is green, and this is white. Now, each of these colors represents the different people here, right? Now, some persons are red, some persons are blue, some persons are green, some persons are white. It has nothing to do with um, um, it has nothing to do with like, oh, categorizing people. No, it's more like these are different and distinct ways in which God has created us. Now, but sometimes you'll see that you're red, but another person is calling you blue, or calling you white, or calling you what you're not. And sometimes we have grown into that due to the way where we lived, how we lived. In fact, the people in the Bible that we all know, the Moses, the Gideon, they due to where they were born and the situations that surrounded them, it took God to actually help them to realize who they actually are. So, and I have a word of advice for us. So the thing is never to allow anyone to call you someone whom God did not create, right? And then never also allow yourself to give yourself a name that God never gave you, right? And then the third thing is, most importantly, someone who is colorblind. Never allow him to convince you to accept that you're a color that you're not, even when the person has proofs. Now, I'm saying this because growing up, I've seen people call me who I'm not, and I've believed it because they were higher in authority or even spiritually or something like that. And I grew up into a mode that I shouldn't have. And then it took the grace of God with the help of other people to help me become where I'm still in progress. But the truth is, if not for the interception, I would have fallen into those bigger traps. So that's what I just want to Hello. So now let's go into what we have to talk about today. What is exactly project management? Project management, sorry. What role do they play for organization? What is a project? I know most people here are like project management. I really want to do this thing, but I don't know what's about. I don't even know how to start. I hear project management, but I know that they earn big salaries or something like that. Is there any way I could actually fit into that space? Now, first thing is to actually ask, what's a project? Now, it's a temporary one-time exercise. It varies in duration. It has a start date. It has a finish date, but is derived from a need that needs to be met. Now, an organization or a person or a company or a business has a need, and they need to solve that need so that they will move from point A to point B. The only way they can achieve that is by instituting a project. A project is the vehicle that would actually help them move from point A to point B. And at the end of the day, we are either creating a product that they would use or creating a service that they would use. Now, this product or service would actually introduce a change. So let's say Mr. Peter does not have a car and Mr. Peter needs a car. Now, the process of Mr. Peter getting a car would require a project. Now, what we are getting for Mr. Peter at the end of the day is a car. Now, now that car will be handed over to Mr. Peter to use for his normal day-to-day life. Now, if this is a project, who is going to make this happen? That person is a project manager. And the project manager's responsibility is to ensure that the day-to-day management of that project, to take it from where it is, from the mind of the customer to the need, to actually them realizing it to become a solution to meet their need. So what their main role is actually aimed at producing an end product that would actually effect positive change. And if this change is effected, it would actually bring benefits to the organization that instigated the project. So what should we know? A project manager, I would explain in a very simple way. One of the first things we do is we manage people in the project. So a project, when you say project manager, it means somebody who manages a project or manages the things associated with the project. So if you want to be a project manager, you have to be a people manager. And who are the people we manage? Now, you have to manage yourself. Some of us we've not conquered ourselves. If you haven't conquered yourself, you can't conquer another person. If you haven't led yourself successfully, how then do you lead another person? So you have to know how to put yourself under control. If not, you'll just be sacking everybody, right? There are situations where you just have to keep your cool. Next thing is your line manager. Now, the person who assigned you to work on that project. Now, another is the customer. The customer is the person who has the problem and who is wanting your company to actually provide them a solution. The sponsor is the person who has the money in his pockets and he's paying. He could be coming from the customer side, it could be coming from your own organization. The project team are the people who you would work with and they will get the job done. Now, the project board are the people who will be directing. So you are managing, the project team is delivering, the project board is governing or directing. Now, in doing this, you'll be working with internal and external stakeholders. A stakeholder is anybody who can influence or who has interest or who can impact the outcome of that project. So first thing first, Darlington, I don't know what project management is. I don't know what they do. A project is a one-time event that actually happens due a varying duration. And a project manager is the person responsible for ensuring that that project is successful. Now, he does that by managing people. And these are the different people that he manages. Now, the next thing is he manages constraints. A constraint is something that needs to be taken care of. Things like cost. He manages cost because every project has a cost attached to it. He manages time because every project has a start and finish date. Now, producing 5,000 or 1 million bottles of of Dangote 50 cl bottled water is not a project, but actually creating that first prototype of bottled water is the project. Now, mass producing that one is operations, or what we call business as usual. So a project is instituted to create a unique product. Now, once that product is created, we can then start mass producing it. I could create a process for you in your organization. So the process of creating that process is a project. But once your organization starts using the process to actually to their benefit, it's called operations. So another thing we manage is risk, actions, assumptions, dependencies. Um, Before we join this course, there's a risk that the internet could go off. There's a risk that we could get engaged in other things. Actions are list of things that you needed to do to get here. Assumption is that I'm assuming the call will be remotely, so we'll join online. Dependencies are things that you must do for another thing to happen. They all happen within a project. Stakeholders, like I did mention, you have to manage their engagement. You have to, there are some that you have to keep closely, there are some that you have to keep informed. I have managed a project where when I was working for one of the largest ICT network cabling companies in Nigeria, were to do a project for ExxonMobil, and I didn't know that they were asked to provide the list of members that would be working on that project on site. And I provided every other person's name without providing my name because I had a good rapport with the site manager, but I didn't take into account the procedures, the HSC procedures for carrying out any network or data center installation within the premise. So I didn't put my name. So on the day during the execution of the project, I went there and I was told, no, you can't enter. I said, tell Mr. Gideon that I am downstairs. He said, please, this has nothing to do with Gideon. It has everything to do with process and procedure. Now, the thing is, the project, I wasn't allowed on site at all. I had to manage the team remotely. I had to give them extra. I had to make them believe that they could do things without my physical presence. But still, for me, it was a lessons learned because I should not assume. So if you have assumptions, you have to note them down, clarify them so that they don't become bottlenecks. So these are some of the things we have to fix in project. You have to manage communication flow. There are some things that should go to the customer. There are some things that should only stay within the team. So if your team member resigns from your organization, the customer doesn't need to know, except it's actually so much impacting, or you have to manage the communication in a way that the customer um, doesn't lose so much value or start becoming afraid that because this key stakeholder will not be there, the project is not going to go successful. So we also manage sorry if somebody's hand it's up. um yeah, do you want to ask a question? I think ADBC, that should be you, or was it raised in error? Okay, I'll just continue. So we manage documentation storage. So this is just telling you that, okay, if I don't know what project managers do, we manage people, we manage constraints, we manage expectations. Now we keep our eyes on the results. We keep our eyes on making sure that the customers reason for coming to us is success. We keep our eyes on quality. We keep our eyes on team members. We don't use team members to achieve what we want. We work with the team members to achieve what should be achieved. We don't um, use team members to actually like use them as a tool to achieve your aim. No, that's not what project management is about. It's like you are part of the team. The only thing is you're leading the team and showing examples on how things should be done. Now, the last thing we do is we manage the work. So everything that needs to be done as against the plan, keeping the team focused on the plan, and ensuring that the team do not run out of resources or steam. So, in a very layman explanation, who is a project manager? Someone who manages people in the project, manages the constraints and environment where the project is happening, manages the expectation, and manages the work. Now, in doing all of these things, we develop different skills like stakeholder management, leadership, planning, resolving issues, adapting to change, reporting, budgeting, communication, organization, and the rest. So now let's go to how do I do my work as a project manager? So the thing is, every project has a life cycle. It means, remember, we said a project has a start date and it has an end date. So the first thing is there were so many discussions that were happening before the project even started. So this is where a customer, a business has a need. They want to change their entire IT infrastructure. They want to move from Microsoft to Google, or they want to actually build a new site, or they want to relocate to a new site, or they want to install, change their internet services. There must be something that is a need for the organization, or they want to launch a new product, or they want to come up with a new learning program, or they want to change their HR hiring process. It could be anything, but that need has to be assessed and seen that it will have so much value for the business. Now, the management with the business analyst will have to do a business case, a benefit management plan, as well as know all the proposals and the costings that needs to happen. Now, if at the end of the day, it's going to be a viable or justifiable thing to spend. Now, that is only when we will then call a project manager to do what? To start the project. Now, at that point, a project manager needs to just understand what is the scope. What am I to do? Because I can't bring in any team until I know what exactly it is to do. I can't just say we are designing a car. No, I need to know the type of car we're designing. I need to know so that I will know the kind of mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, structural engineer, a design expert, an automobile engineer. I need to know the kind of people. If it will require some study, maybe that car is supposed to use biofuel, but if I do not know the scope, I wouldn't know the team members to actually assemble together for the project. So the first thing to do here is we understand what the scope is, we understand why the project is instituted, we gather the team members together, and we prepare to start the work. Now, once we know, we have an idea of the project, the next thing is, okay, how do I prepare? How do I prepare for the work? What approach are we going to use to do this work? So this is where I bring the team together and say, guys, let's plan. Let's come up with a plan. Let's come up with a strategy. Let's come up with an approach. It is not the project manager that says this is how it should be done. The project manager brings the team together and the team will say how best it should be done. And the project manager will collect that into a strategy and create a plan out of it. Because somebody will say, Darlington, I've not worked in construction project. I've seen a job. I love construction. But you don't need to be a construction expert, but you need to know what foundation is. You need to know decking. You need to know when they say roof. The basic things you need to know so that when the team members are talking, you'll be able to respond. You don't need to calculate the density of the block and the amount of the weight the lower block would take, or the thickness of the cement. You don't have to calculate that. A QA/QC person will do that. A structural or civil engineer will be there, but you need to be able to understand the basics. Now, if we come up with a plan, what should we do next? Everybody needs to start carrying out the work. What will I do? My job is to coordinate the work. How do we do that? Ensure that everybody is following the plan. And then ensure that all the materials, all the resources that is needed for the work to be done is available. I am not the person doing the work. My job is to enable and coordinate the team to do the work. And how do we know the work? We'll go back to stage 2. There was a plan that was created. So if the team is executing, I am coordinating the execution. I'm not the person executing. I'm like a coach. I have 11. I have the formation is the plan. We say we're going to play with 2 strikers, or we'll play with, I'm a Madrid fan, so you want to play Vinicius and Rodrigo with Bellingham, or no, you don't want to play that. If the plan is not working during the execution, if it's not working, you go back to the plan. All right. So if execution is not working, you go back to the plan. So this planning and execution it evolves. That's why rather than putting a straight line stuff, I actually put more like a circular stuff so that we know that everything, if we are planning and we don't understand clearly what they've asked us to do, we go back to understand the scope. If the scope is not attached to a cost or there's no benefit, we go back to this stage. So we keep doing that. So if as a project manager, as I'm coordinating the work, things might go out of order, I need to control it. So there are baselines we must not cross. There are budget limits we must not pass. There are things we must keep in check. That is where quality and controls come in. So every deliverable that is actually released has to be tested and ensure that it is in line. Now, once everything is fine, then we need to wrap up the project. Everybody who is involved, those who needs to sign, we'll hand over the product that we've developed to the sponsor, and all the team members would be disengaged for them to go into other stuff. So the previous slide, we spoke about managing people, managing expectations, managing constraints. Here is how it plays out in a life cycle, starting from 0 when you were not involved. This is like where we were all in the gaseous state until our parents came and then we were born. And every project, just like every an insect moved from the egg to the larva to the pupa to the imago, that then you now go to the adult before you become. So every project has that stage. And a project manager, this is what we do. We get started, we prepare for the work, we coordinate the work, we ensure that controls are put in place, and if everything is done, we close it. We go on to the next project. So now, seeing all of this, the big question is, Darlington is still rocket science. I know you've told me what project is, you've told me who a project manager is, you've told me what they do, and you've told me how they do it. Now, how do I do it? Now, that's the big question. Now, for you to do this, I got a wisdom to actually share. Now, the first thing is I could say that in the next 6 months, or let's say before the end of the year, we could actually say, I want to be a project manager. So if it's something that you really, really would want to do, now I could tell you how to go about it. Now, the first thing is this is where we are today, like attending this webinar and having a general understanding of who this person is. Now, but it doesn't stop here. The next thing is we need to do some analysis. You need to find out, do like, this is where I am today. Now, so you look at in the mirror and say, God, there's an impression in me to be a project manager. Now, you're not going to be employed by your father or your mother. You're going to be employed by a company. Now, you need to first of all go out there and see what are companies asking for in terms of skill sets, in terms of education, in terms of documentation, in terms of experience, in terms of tools, in terms of softwares or whatever it is. What is the market asking for? And if I'm in Nigeria, what is the Nigerian market requesting for a project manager? If I'm in the UK, if I'm in Europe, if I'm in Canada, wherever I am, wherever you want to apply, it's just like somebody who is a businessman and you want to launch a new product. There are products that did not survive 2 years in Nigeria, but these products were doing well in the Western world. Why? Maybe because the particular market where you're bringing that particular product, you didn't study the market, you didn't understand the people that are going to use the product. So if you are going to be a project manager, the first thing to do is, okay, apart from the self-study, you need to do a market study. You need to say, okay, this is the market I want to apply for job. Are they asking for project managers in the first place? Now, if you check that market and they don't need project manager, my brother, my sister, just like Jesus said, you dust your feet and choose another discipline. Because now, but if you look and you read things like, okay, in the next 5 years, the 5 to 10 years, there will be over 200,000 um, project management positions. And also in Nigeria, you check, or in the UK, you check, and just by typing the vacancy, you're seeing like so many companies recruiting, and you looked into who a project manager is, you feel that, oh, there is a lot of prospects. That's when you would then say, okay, yes, there is a market or there's a space for me. And then the funding approach, you need to start saying, okay, what is my budget for this thing that I'm about to go into? So that's the stage two. The stage three is like you doing an analysis and gathering enough data to prepare yourself for the journey and finding who a training provider would be. Now, stage three is get guidance. So we get guidance by getting trained, we get guidance on knowing the type of certifications, how I will continue my learning, and how I will continue on learning some of the things that I have learned, and then how I would enhance on the self-reading or self-study. Now, the fourth thing is to get experience. So I have been trained. I need to be coached, or I need to be mentored, and I need to volunteer in an organization or get some internship where I would apply whatever it is that I have already gotten. Now, once I have gotten that initial experience, so it means that experience should prepare me to get a job. Now, the last thing to do is to grow the experience. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are in this stage. Some persons are already maybe in stage 3. Some persons are in stage 5 already. Now, stage 5 takes you back to stage 1. And the journey continues like that. Because here says grow. Now here is attend, here is a now market gap analysis, but here is get grow. So you get guidance, you get the experience, and you continue to grow. Now, in doing this, in terms of, some people might say, what certifications are needed? Now, I know this is on recording, but I would say this: you do not need a certification to actually start a career in project management. However, it is it is nice if you do have. Now, what I would say is, I have a question. I do ask that question each time I have a webinar, and I would love us to drop an answer. You have you have an emergency situation in your compound, right? Actually, there are two situations I will ask. You have an emergency situation in your compound, and somebody, you have a car, you just got a car, you can't drive it. Now you ask your neighbor, and two neighbors came out. One has a driver's license in his hand, but he cannot drive. We don't even know how he got the driver's license. Let's not go into that. But another person can drive, but he doesn't have a driver's license. Now, if you were to, the thing is, you've seen the person drive, you've heard that the person can drive. Now, and there's an emergency situation. Who would you hand over your key? Would you give your key to the person who has a driver's license but cannot drive? Or you would give your key to somebody who doesn't have a driver's license now, but the person has been trained to drive? So who do you think should take the key, or who should we give? Now, why don't we say, I better go, let's give the key to the person who has license? Somebody asked me a question. They said, the reason I'm saying this is, all this, I claim it, I believe it. Now, faith does not mean, faith is evidence, right? It's evidence of things not seen. So evidence is, it's evidence. You go to a supermarket, you take your card. After selecting some things, you have the assurance in your mind, in your heart, that if you put your card on the ATM, on the POS, and you put your PIN, definitely you will not be rejected. That confidence is because you have money, you have faith. So it's like entering an airplane. You wanted to fly from Lagos to London, and you happen to have a chat with the pilot, and you ask the pilot, so how are you doing? Say fine. You mistakenly, not mistakenly, you just asked, so have you flown a plane before? Like, is this? And then the first thing you hear is, my brother, don't worry, just go and sit down. God is in control. I believe I can fly a plane. This is not a, this is what we do. We claim for things we don't have and hide it under I believe, right? Don't worry, I believe I can. How many are you people? You father, mother, and three. Don't worry, all of you will be safe. I strongly believe that I can fly. It's not a matter of, so the point is, experience, getting guidance and getting the experience is much more important. Now, the certificate should be an added advantage to that. Not that you would go get the certification, but then there is nothing to show for it. Now, related jobs that somebody could do, jobs related to this project manager, or it's, some people could apply for project coordinator, project manager, delivery manager, implementation manager. They all sound alike. A project officer is just like a very, very entry position to these project management space. Now, in terms of industries, there are several industries where a this project manager, I think I've said it like more than 50 times. There are several industries where you could actually apply the gained skill in um, project management. Now, do we have any? Let me take a pause. Is there any question so far? Um, Please feel free to ask. You could raise up your hand and then unmute yourself and ask. Somebody could say, how do you do this? How do you do this? So, but if there's no question, I could go to the next slide, and then that should be almost the last slide, and then we'll just ask all the questions there. So this is what I advise for people who want to start um, the journey. Now, how can we help? We've gone through um, we've gone through this um, first part, which is introduction to project management. We've actually talked about what a project manager does in a PM cycle, and we've actually then spoken about how do I start. So moving from this webinar to having a gap analysis done, for those who wish I could actually help, if after this webinar, if you can want to say, okay, I want to do this gap analysis, but I don't know how to do it. Now, we don't mind, we would help, but then it has to be on a serious note. You need to determine in your heart that yes, this is something you want to do. So now, for so this is how there is um for the past 3 years, I think I I and the team have been able to mentor over 200 persons in the UK, and a couple of persons also in um in Nigeria. So I would just say something. Or no, let me continue before we start. So I mean, before I digress. So um, for those in this is how. So the thing is, there is how we're going to go about this is there is a first of all we take students, we train them, we go deeper into all of the general intro that I've just given. We go much deeper into that to tell them what project management is about, the roles and the processes, the tools, the softwares, and the documents used by project managers, managing different situations, real life situations as seen in project, and how also a project management plays in an agile space. Now, there is also the mentorship and the coaching side. Remember, in our cycle, we said that there is this get guidance. So the get guidance is where we first of all train. So there is a 3 weeks training that we give on project management, practical based training led by people who are already. We don't use trainers per se. We use those who are already working, so that whatever examples that will be given would actually be examples coming from where they work, or where they have worked, or what they actually foresee to be issues that they would face. So now, going back to that, we said we'll go through the training, which is the get guidance phase, and we'll go to the mentorship, which is the get experience side. Now, it varies from regions to region. So I would actually start with my beloved country, Nigeria. Now, for those in Nigeria, we actually run a program where there's a 3 weeks training, and after that, there is a 5 weeks of coaching. Now, I would explain how it works. The training is you'll be trained on project management and how a project manager would react to situations in real life situations. And then the coaching side is once you're done with the training is aimed to build mentally in your mind who a project manager is and should be. Then for the next 5 weeks, we would assign you to a project manager in Nigeria. Now, this project manager, we have networks of project managers who are already working. So you'll be assigned to one project manager who, by reason of your working with the person, whatever thing you have learned during the training, you need to apply it assisting that project manager. So, for example, if you're assigned to me, for example, I have a couple of projects in the organizations I work with, right? Whether it's IT-based projects, whether it's infrastructure, whatever be the case. Now, you would have to work with me for that 5 weeks period. Now, you and I will sit down based on whatever it is, we would come up with a checklist of things that in these 5 weeks I expect you to do. So it's not me giving you assignment, it's you working together with me for the 5 weeks on the projects that I am working on. So on a day-to-day basis, you see how I do my stuff, how I create my reports, how I schedule my meetings, how I create documentations, how I manage different project situations. And then if I'm to do anything, I could say, hey, Emeka, there's a project plan that I need to create. Will you be available at 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. so we could create it together? So that builds a bond between the mentee and the mentor for that 5 weeks period. Now, at the end of that 5 weeks, it is expected that the students, or we call them emerging professionals, would actually have been able to gain at least a good amount of learning and experience for that 3 weeks plus 5 weeks. Then there is an extra 2 weeks period to start preparing the student for the job market, which is reworking the CV, reworking the LinkedIn profile, helping with interview preparations, building um, the building the confidence in you to trust in God and also to not look down on yourself, so that when you actually then go out. Now, also to mention, whosoever, so if you're to work with somebody who is a project manager in MTN, now, whatever, it gives you the chance to speak to the potential employer to say, oh, we worked on a project where we did this, I was responsible for this, because you worked directly with the mentor or the coach one-on-one, and you saw how everything was done. Now, at the end of the day, if a reference is required, the mentor would be able to provide you reference on that particular project that you worked. So it's not a dummy stuff. So you're going to be working live hand in hand with the mentor for that 5 weeks period. So the Nigerian students actually do this over a 10 weeks period, and this comes with a 1 month of on-the-job support. Now, what that means is, should you by God's grace get a job after the after from what you've gained and with the CV you were able to apply and you get a job, now we would save a 1 month period. Now that 1 month period, it's you could come when you get the job. The thing is, you have 1 month saved in the bank, where either the mentor that you worked with or somebody from the team would actually be there to hold your hand or to guide you on your job for the first 1 month. So this is so as for you not to get so much panic of, oh, what do I do? How do I start? because we know that sometimes getting into a new field can be overwhelming. So the payment actually covers for that 1 month of on the job support when you get a job. So the Nigerian package is actually tailored to enable students in Nigeria who wish to be project managers in Nigeria to actually gain all the respective experience it takes to break into the Nigerian market. And then the mentor would actually provide you how he, so different people are assigned to different mentors. So that's on the Nigerian side. Now on the international market, which includes the UK, Europe, US, and Canada. Now it's the training is also 3 weeks, but then the coaching it's on a 9 weeks period, making the total duration 14 weeks if you actually add the 2 weeks of market preparation. And it also comes with the 1 month of job support. And the same process here where students are assigned to project managers within Nigeria. Here, students are assigned to project managers within the region where they intend to practice. So in all of this, we so I would say this is how we intend to help